The snow fell in silent, heavy sheets, blanketing the desolate stretch of Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire. It was a Monday night, February 9th, 2004, a night so cold it felt like the air itself could shatter. In a ditch, a black Saturn sedan sat askew, its crumpled front end pointing toward the dark, unforgiving woods. Inside, the airbags had deployed, but the driver was gone. A young woman, a nursing student with her whole life ahead of her, had seemingly vanished into the frozen landscape. In a window of just 7 minutes, between the time a passing bus driver saw her and the moment police arrived, she disappeared without a trace. How does a person simply evaporate into thin air, leaving behind a crashed car and a mystery that would haunt a community for 2 decades? This isn't just a story of a missing person. It's a chilling, true crime story about the secrets we carry and the terrifying possibilities that await us on a lonely road in the middle of nowhere. Her name was Maura Murray. To those who knew her, she was the picture of success and ambition. A 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, Maura was also a standout athlete, a star on the track team who had earned a full scholarship. She was known for her discipline, her intelligence, and a smile that could light up a room. She had a close-knit family and a boyfriend she seemed to love. On the surface, Maura Murray was a young woman with everything to live for. But beneath that polished exterior, cracks were beginning to show. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Maura's behavior had become increasingly erratic. She'd been involved in a minor fender bender, was facing a credit card fraud charge for ordering food with a stolen card number, and had reportedly been experiencing turmoil in her long-distance relationship. The community of Amherst, a bustling college town, was a world away from the remote, sparsely populated area of northern New Hampshire where her car would be found. This stark contrast between her vibrant life and the desolate end of her journey is what makes this unsolved case so deeply unsettling. It's a story that forces us to question how well we truly know anyone, even those who seem closest to us. The final known movements of Maura Murray are a sequence of strange and deliberate actions. On Monday, February 9th, she packed her car with textbooks, clothes, and a collection of her favorite art prints. Before leaving, she printed out directions to 2 locations, Burlington, Vermont, and the Berkshires in western Massachusetts. Then, she sat down at her computer and emailed her nursing professors a simple, chilling message. "I have a death in the family, there will be a funeral, and I will be away for a week." It was a lie. There was no death in her family. At 3:40 p.m., she withdrew $280 from an ATM, an amount caught on a security camera that showed her wearing a dark coat and a look of deep distress. She then purchased $40 worth of alcohol, including Bailey's, Kahlua, and a box of Franzia wine. Her final call was to her boyfriend, Billy, at 4:15 p.m. The conversation was brief, and according to him, strained. Then she was gone. Her cell phone pinged a tower in the area of Londonderry, New Hampshire, placing her firmly on her journey north. Hours later, as darkness and a vicious snowstorm descended, a local school bus driver named Butch Atwood came upon the scene of the crash. He saw a young woman, Maura, sitting inside the Saturn. He pulled over, offered to call for help, but she calmly refused, stating she had already called AAA. This was another lie. Atwood, sensing something was off but not wanting to pry, drove the last 100 yards to his home and immediately called the police. But by the time they arrived, just minutes later, the scene was empty. The car was locked, Maura was gone, and the only tracks in the fresh snow were her own, leading away from the road and into the oppressive darkness of the forest. She had vanished. When state troopers arrived at 7:46 p.m., they found a crime scene that was more of a question mark than a clue. The black Saturn was cold to the touch, its windshield cracked on the passenger side. Inside, the car was a mess of personal items, but her wallet, credit cards, and cell phone were missing. The most baffling discovery was a red rag, stuffed deep into the car's tailpipe. Was it placed there to disable the vehicle, or was it there for another, more sinister reason? The box of Franzia wine was found in the back seat, damaged and leaking, though it's still debated whether it was empty or full. The investigation immediately kicked into high gear. with the FBI, state police, and local volunteers conducting a massive search of the surrounding woods. Cadaver dogs were brought in, and one reportedly got a hit near an old, abandoned cabin a few miles from the crash site, but nothing was ever found. The initial theory was that Maura had either succumbed to the elements after wandering into the wilderness or had been the victim of an opportunistic predator who saw a vulnerable, stranded woman. But as investigators dug into her life, they uncovered a web of secrets that complicated the picture. The lie about the family death, the recent legal troubles, and the cryptic emails to her boyfriend suggested this wasn't a random disappearance. This was a classic murder mystery, where the victim's own life became a central piece of the puzzle. Was she running from something or running to something? The police had to consider every possibility, from abduction to a carefully planned escape, and each potential answer only led to more questions in this baffling cold case. Just when it seemed the case might be a straightforward abduction or a tragic case of a person lost in the woods, a series of revelations twisted the narrative in a completely new direction. The first twist came from Maura's own computer. A search of her hard drive revealed she had been looking up directions and information on the White Mountains of New Hampshire. She was also researching places to stay in the area. This wasn't a random detour. She was heading there with purpose. Then came the personal life details that painted a portrait of a young woman on the brink. Her father later revealed she had called him the weekend before her disappearance, sobbing uncontrollably, though she wouldn't say why. A friend came forward with an email Maura had sent, detailing her struggles with what she called daddy issues and the pressure she felt. The perfect student was cracking under the weight of her own expectations. The most suspenseful turn, however, came from witness reports that emerged in the days following her disappearance. A contractor working in the area reported seeing a young woman matching Maura's description running on Route 112, several miles from the crash site, around the time she vanished. He said she looked panicked and was moving quickly. Another witness, a few towns over, claimed to have seen a young woman who looked like Maura in the company of an older man in a convenience store. Were these credible sightings, or were they just false leads in a case that was growing colder by the hour? The most chilling theory, one that investigators had to confront, was that Maura Murray didn't disappear by accident or at the hands of a stranger. What if she had orchestrated her own disappearance to escape her life? And if so, did she have help? The possibility that she met someone she knew in that dark, snowy forest, someone who helped her vanish, introduced a new layer of intrigue and made this true crime story even more complex. Today, 20 years later, the case of Maura Murray remains one of New England's most haunting unsolved mysteries. It is a cold case that has resisted every attempt at resolution, leaving behind a trail of exhausted leads and grieving family members. The official investigation has yielded no definitive answers, and no person of interest has ever been named. Over the years, amateur sleuths and true crime documentarians have dissected every piece of evidence, every witness statement, but the consensus remains elusive. Theories abound, each with its own compelling arguments. Some believe Maura was the victim of a local predator who saw an opportunity and has since lived with a dark secret. Others are convinced she succumbed to the brutal New Hampshire wilderness, her body still lying undiscovered in some remote corner of the forest. A significant portion of investigators and followers believe she orchestrated her own disappearance, starting a new life in Canada or elsewhere to escape the mounting pressures she faced. And then there are the darker theories that she was targeted by someone she knew, someone who was aware of her plans and was waiting for her in the shadows that night. The truth is, every theory has a hole. Every potential explanation comes with a contradiction. The rag in the tailpipe, the missing backpack, the conflicting witness accounts. They are all pieces of a puzzle that refuse to fit together. The resolution to this case is that there is no resolution, only a lingering, deafening silence from the woods of Haverhill. The final question isn't just what happened to Maura Murray, but whether we will ever know the difference between a victim of circumstance and a ghost of her own creation. The silence of the New Hampshire forest is deafening, holding the secret of what truly happened on that cold February night. The story of Maura Murray is a stark reminder of how quickly a life can unravel and how easily a person can slip through the cracks, leaving only questions behind. What do you think happened to Maura Murray? Do you believe she met with foul play, or did she successfully vanish to start a new life? Share your theories in the comments below. Every perspective could be the one that unlocks this mystery. If this deep dive into one of America's most perplexing cold cases has captivated you, make sure you subscribe to True Crime Watchtower. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our weekly investigations into the most chilling true crime stories. Join our community of dedicated crime watchers, and together, let's keep the search for the truth alive.